Hi, so today I will be discussing Jungian therapy, and I'm just going to go over a lot different aspects about it. So first and foremost, the history of this theory in Jungian therapy, also known as analytical psychology, was developed by a Swiss psychiatrist, Carl Gustav Jung, and his main focus was on the deep integration of the unconscious and the conscious mind. His ultimate goal was to achieve individuation, which is known as the process to becoming your true self. This process was accomplished by being able to bring together two different extremes. In his case, he often brought about the importance of, say, the instance of understanding the dynamic between feminine energy and masculine energy, and the way in which combining both could really result in a balance for the individual and their mental health and well-being. Another good example that he would provide as well was realizing the persona that we show out to the world, as well as the balance with the shadow self that we conceal from the world, and how important it is for us to actually bring them together and allow them both to be shown, but also come to terms with both of them, knowing that otherwise the shadow self would actually start to seep out into different parts and let us actually start to see parts of itself, and it could cause negative impact into our relationships, our bonds with those around us. So a few, of course, as the major contributors to this theory, of course, Carl Gustav Jung and his teacher, Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud took in Carl Jung as his protege, and Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung kind of went to different paths after Carl Jung gave attention and felt that there was a importance under the unconscious part of the mind. So it's the part of the mind that we tend to suppress and we don't give much attention to, while Sigmund Freud really believed was more focused on the conscious mind. So Carl Jung focused a little bit more on our subconscious and our unconscious mind, going into the personal unconscious, which is a little bit different than the collective unconscious, and that was his new or big idea that he had. So a few points of this theory that really stand out are the unconscious, archetypes, and individuation. The unconscious is divided into the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious, where your personal unconscious happens to be those parts of yourself that come from traumas, past experiences that we suppress. The collective unconscious happens to come out of your ancestors and generations before you, where they tend to kind of guide you. So you will see your collective unconscious actually start to show up in your life through those instinctual reactions that we have to things, and that is why it's called the collective unconscious, because it kind of comes from a collective worldwide thing. Whereas your personal unconscious is just unique to you. So nobody else can really, you contribute to the collective unconscious through your own personal experiences. However, your personal unconscious does come derived mostly from your own experiences, coming from your own personal traumas and situations. Next topic that he was really big on was archetypes, and this really tapped into these universal symbols and themes that would emerge into myths, dreams, and stories. So under this category, he would really discuss the way in which there was universal symbols that really held the same meaning in everything, such as light tends to really demonstrate a power of divine beauty and a positive power and energy. Meanwhile, water, which is another universal symbol, tends to really show up as cleansing and purification tactics. And with that being said, we can see the way in which these two symbols can be universally found to be the same. Another thing is that he would talk about dreams and how he would incorporate these symbols into the meaning found in your dreams. So oftentimes individuals would have symbols show up in their dreams, such as water or light or darkness, these different symbols that universally meant the same thing, and he felt that it could give us revelations about ourselves out into the world. So that is kind of where we would see how those universal symbols are tapped into our dreams, and he would give these different types of therapies where he would apply dream analysis. In our myths and our stories, we can find that there are several archetypes, different roles or character roles, such as the healer or the hero that would come into play, and there's these common roles kind of that individuals take. There's different strengths and weaknesses to his theory. First and foremost, we can discuss that there's an increased self-awareness and personal growth. Because his theory is so focused on your personal self rather than other exterior factors, Carl Jung was actually very focused on seeing you go into that point of individuation, as mentioned earlier. And so because of this, it led to more self-awareness, leading to personal growth for individuals. It does create a better integration of the unconscious material, which leads to a more balanced and authentic life. So oftentimes we are suppressing things deep within, and that causes us to feel a sort of, you could say, disturbance within. You don't know how to balance your life. You tend to focus on the wrong parts of your life, and we suppress a lot of thoughts. And in order to have a balanced and authentic life, it's very important for us to tap into these unconscious parts of ourselves and traumas that we are bubbling and hiding aside. So with him allowing those parts to be integrated to your conscious self, you are able to create this balance for yourself and really be able to navigate your life a lot better and cultivate a better relationship with yourself. This leads to a development of a deeper sense of meaning and connection to the larger human experience. When you are able to connect with yourself, he felt that it would allow us to connect with those around us, as we can see ourselves within them, but also see the way in which we are collectively one. Carl Jung was really big on trying to help us connect with one another, but also connecting with ourselves. And if you could connect with yourself, you could connect with someone outside of you. So that is where that strong sense of meaning and connection really comes from. Next up, we can talk about the weaknesses of this theory, and that is just mostly the main one is that it is a time-consuming process. This type of therapy that he provides really has different methods, but each method tends to be time-consuming because of methods such as talk therapy, in which, the client is discussing how they are feeling and they are revealing it to the therapist, and the therapist will pick at the different parts based off of tone, facial expression, and the way in which the words were said. This will affect the process and how they choose to go through it. Another factor to consider is that most of these conversations or things being discussed come from deep trauma that has been hidden within and suppressed for so long. Because it has been suppressed for so long, it is important for us to recognize that it will take much longer for us to dig out and bring out to our awareness. That does mean going deeper, being open to listening to our deeper parts of self in order to obtain this information. The next weakness would be that it is based on therapist interpretation. So when it came to dream analysis, as well as the word association and different types of parts of the therapy, we can notice that a lot of it comes down to what your therapist and how they interpret it. So a lot of Carl Jung's interpretations are what affected how the client would perceive the therapy. In this case, he could be doing a dream analysis, and because he's aware of a symbol meaning a certain thing, doesn't mean that the symbol meant that for the client, which you could take that to be a weakness, but you could also see that it creates an unbiased revelation as well for their dreams. And lastly, the last weakness that we could mention is that it's not necessarily a beneficial type of therapy for those seeking a practical intervention. This type of intervention requires a lot deeper thought and kind of self-awareness of oneself, kind of digging deep within in order to be able to heal. And most therapies, for the most part, some people seek a therapy that will solve their problem immediately. This is kind of a long-term kind of therapy, but also a longer process, one that will be dragged on longer, however, proving long-term better results. Next up, we can talk about the techniques used in the application of this theory. So one of his big ways of applying this theory was talk therapy, through which Jung believed that it allowed his clients a safe space to explore their minds, that they can tap into the unconscious and navigate through deeper traumas and experiences. This being said, Jung was strong on believing that oftentimes we have a lot of suppressed thoughts, we have a lot of suppressed emotions and experiences, and in order for us to truly be able to tap into them, we have to be given liberty to flow and explore and navigate the mind within. So if we were to let a client lay back and just start talking, slowly the client will start talking more deeply about things that they didn't even realize were there. In this case, oftentimes during talk therapy, the clinician has the client just start talking. That is where the clinician may pick up on words or cues that signify that the client has some type of discomfort, or they might feel a certain way about a certain part of the therapy or what they are discussing. This gives the cue to the clinician on how to direct the conversation and ask a question that will allow the client to dig deeper and ask themselves that question in return, trying to find out why it is that certain things may have triggered them or made them feel a certain way. It is a space in which a client can talk about their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and really just talk about what's going on in their head. That will allow you to notice any changes that maybe the client wants to change. It even brings to light things that they didn't even realize. And it can be very therapeutic and helpful for them, even if it is a long process. It does help them deal a lot with their emotional issues, and it has been proven to work as well as reduce symptoms for their different types of situations, whether they are depressed or stressed. It allows them to really just release that load off their shoulders. And that was like a very powerful point of Jung's form of therapy. Next up, we can discuss the dream analysis, which he viewed to be a direct communication from the unconscious. Jung believed that our dreams would reveal symbolic messages and provide insight into the unconscious, in which he believed that would help the individuals integrate their unconscious aspects into their conscious awareness. So often, Jung would really suggest the idea that these dreams actually tied back into what clients would often overlook to be parts of their living lives. Jung felt that in our dreams, we would find parts of our personality that maybe we haven't yet integrated to ourselves, or that we would feel in conflict with before personifying into our daily lives. He did believe that our dreams would be part of our conscious mind. They were just a revelation that our subconscious or unconscious was revealing to us slowly, because we were unable to fully grasp it the first time around. Jung did work a lot with this dream type of therapy, and what he would do is he would actually sit his clients down, ask them to tell him their dreams, and he would ask them for the different key aspects. In many of his different sessions, he would ask the clients to tell the dreams, and then he would get out things such as numbers, which would represent family members, or date of birth, or important years or months, or a time frame from a past trauma. Or he would ask them to define different symbols. So sometimes there were revelations of death, a bird, a specific type of bird, a species, and things such as that would lead Jung to understand a little bit about where this client's trauma was necessarily coming from, or also what the unconscious was trying to reveal to them about their personality that they were trying to suppress. As mentioned earlier, the shadow self is something that Jung was very big on exploring, and this really taps into the dream analysis, as our shadow self is often suppressed by us. We are constantly suppressing our shadow self and not letting it explore out into the world. This means that our shadow self is therefore suppressed and is unhappy. Due to these feelings of suppression, the shadow self will then seep and try to reveal itself in various parts of our lives, and they can often be very negative, causing us to feel distressed, triggered, or respond to things in a negative way. In order to reduce these triggering ways of responding to things, Jung suggested that we should actually come to terms with our shadow self, embrace it, and let it be a part of who we are, just as much as our persona that we present out into the world. Therefore, he incorporates this idea when analyzing dreams by encouraging our clients to really reflect on the way in which our shadow self may be even revealing itself to us through our dreams, by showing those extreme emotions that we may be feeling and want to express out into the world. In doing so, Jung suggested that we would come to see the different parts of ourselves and realize that we have multiple dimensions to our persona than the one that we are commonly used to expressing out into the world. That plays a very key role for his type of therapy, as Jung was very, very focused on the shadow self and realizing that we have various archetypes ingrained into ourselves. So dream analysis really incorporated all these different little aspects of the types of therapy that Jung would provide for his clients. Next up, I would like to discuss the Christian critique of this theory. So, while Jung's therapy provides a foundational point and understanding of the deeper self that leads us to individuation, it lacks the strength to explain the spiritual phenomenon that most Christian practitioners seek in therapy. Oftentimes, when individuals go and seeking Christian-like therapy, Jung's perspective may not be the best suited, as Jung's perspective is mostly focused on the self and the persona that we are within. The person, the individual. It does not really seek for influence outside of higher powers, but rather seeks for you to find your own internal power and really bring that out to fully find yourself rather than finding God. Jungian therapy has been found to focus more on the individual's finding oneself and persona rather than the connection to something more divine, such as God and the Christian faith. As stated, the Christian faith, and when applying it into therapy, oftentimes requires us to really tap into biblical resources, scriptures, and connect ourselves to an outside force. However, for Jung, that was not something that he found to be a very powerful point in therapy, but rather he felt that it was important and just as crucial for individuals to find themselves within, as important as it is for them to find God. He found religion to be a point of helping us go through life and our existence. However, he did not feel that it was the most important aspect for us to incorporate when trying to find ourselves. Rather, he encouraged clients to go deeper and find out the different role that religion played in their lives and why it was required in their lives, or why they found the need of that so that they could feel safe. In conclusion, Jungian therapy may be a time-consuming approach when working with clients, but it holds key elements in guiding them to discovering their authentic self. By analyzing the deeper parts of self, Jung sought to help and cultivate individuation through his methods. These methods included talk therapy, dream analysis, shadow work, and even looking into word association, in which clients would tap into a word and then go from that word to keep on explaining how they would feel. Jung's methods really were a long and time-consuming process. However, it did allow the client to go through several years worth of trauma and deeper influence that they may have overlooked. We live through a world in which we are constantly experiencing things and we may not always know how to cope with it, and therefore we suppress it. Jung was very focused on helping the individual come to this individuation, that he would encourage this longer process. In part of individuation, it means coming to terms with two different extremes, masculine energy versus feminine energy, but coming to realize that you need both to live a balanced and successful life. Likewise, the shadow and the persona that you present to the world require to be incorporated and embraced, to be brought together in order for you to fully find yourself and feel at peace with yourself and know how to react. In his way of viewing it, not every single extreme meant one was good and one was evil, but rather we needed to incorporate both together simultaneously in order to find a place of union, a place of ground. Jung's way of working was powerful and held a lot of meaning. More importantly, Jungian therapy, although may seem outdated, could be very beneficial to many people today in the way in which we deal with things such as depression and the newfound openness to recognizing that we all carry trauma, whether it is generational or situational trauma. We are all carrying different types of trauma and we all seek to heal. And one of the greatest approaches in order to do that would be Jungian therapy, as it allows you that free space to explore your emotions, navigate your mind, and navigate the way in which you seek to approach this subject. Although Jungian therapy, as mentioned earlier, may not be best when trying to apply the Christian perspective, Jungian therapy does hold a very strong point in healing, which is a main focus in Christian beliefs, and having that seeking to help heal others and help them find a good place for themselves. In which case, there is a way in which we can incorporate Jungian therapy to Christian beliefs and allowing them to reside one beside the other. By helping someone find themselves, they can then find a deeper connection to God, as they do not feel led astray or unsure as to why they are following him, but will have a more sure reason as to why they do so. And I feel like it is so important for us to recognize this point, as we can see that although it may be a limitation within the therapy, as clinicians, we have the power to modify the way in which we approach this therapy and apply it to our clients so that they can be successful and lead happy and prosperous lives. Overall, Carl Jung's perspective was a psychoanalytical one, of course, influenced by Sigmund Freud as his prodigy, being his prodigy, but it held a lot of power, and we can see the way it influenced other types of therapy to this day. It set a foundation and groundwork into how we could be better listeners, how we can incorporate the way into which our clients are going to connect with us, but also how important it is for us to connect with them and listen to the things that they have to say. Overall, Jungian therapy may be long and time-consuming, and its weaknesses may be there, but it has its strengths as well. Through the methods that set foundations for lots of psychologists, we can see the way in which this therapy would be very successful. Personally, I find this to be one of the most intriguing therapies, especially with the issues we face in our day and age today of seeking to know who we are, questioning what our purpose is in this life, and finding a method that will actually integrate all these questions and encourage you to go through the long process, but support you along the way, is something that I found to be very enlightening and surprising, especially with the ways in which he constructed to approach this type of therapy. And here are my references. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for listening. And that is Jungian therapy. Thank you.